Hey everyone, Psycho here, and I wanted to make a video for people who are having trouble with drawing different characters. Like maybe all your characters look alike and you want to draw a bunch of different characters. How do you go about doing that? Well, I think the first thing you have to do is get away from the generic head. So when we start out, it's a good idea, and I tell people this and other people do too, to start with something very generic, something where the eyes are roughly in the middle of the head, and then there's a nose from, the eye line, divide that in two, and then you get the mouth, and it's very, I don't know, not interesting. It's not that interesting. And so instead of doing a head just like this, that's quite boring, try varying it up. And so something you could do is, okay, let's start the same way with like this circle for a head, but now let's push it so the eye line is really close to the top, okay? And the nose is much lower and the mouth is lower, so there's just a lot more space on this bottom area, right? From here to here, there's a lot more space than from here to here. And then there's just a little amount of space for the top area of the head. And so let's put in the hairline and get the ears. And now we have a character that, if we give them eyes, let's give this guy eyes too. He's boring, so he's gonna just be looking very, he's gonna have a blank stare looking at us like, whoa, I'm so boring. And then this guy, he's a bit more interesting, so he's gonna be like, let's see, what's he gonna be like? He's gonna be like, yeah, look at me, great. I'm much greater. I'm more cool. And I love life. So there. Now we have two characters. And no, wait. So now we have a non-generic character. And let's give this guy hair. Let's say his hair is doing this. Just something spiky. Okay, and let's say for this guy, it's the same thing, but we're going to have less on the top, more on the bottom. So we have that. Okay, so because I raised the eyes and I kept the nose lower, it's going to give him a much longer nose. So that's cool. And we've got a longer nose and the eyes close to the head. So now we have a character that's more interesting, and it's because we didn't just stick to the very generic proportions. Now, once you have one character like this that is not a generic character, so not everything is symmetrical, and later on you'll be able to even, get more characters even out of a sort of a generic face. But let's say you just have this character now. It's really easy to get the second one. And the way you do it is you just reverse this. So here we had a tiny space for the from the forehead to the eyes, or at the top of the head to the eyes, and a big space from the eyes to the chin. So let's just reverse that and make it very small from the nose to the chin and push the eyes lower. So now what's going to happen is we're going to get a small nose, and we'll have the eyes around here. And we'll get this big forehead. Let's just keep the hair relatively similar. And there, now we have another character. Maybe this guy's a bit more brainy. I don't know. Maybe not. So now we have two characters. Okay, so that's how to make two characters just by changing, where the eye line is, but keeping the rest pretty similar. But it's not my preferred way to make characters, and the way I really like to make characters is to base them off of shapes. So shapes like this, for instance, a triangle maybe, instead of just that circly head. I think, okay, let's make a triangle character. And let's put the eyes, well, we can put the eyes anywhere, but let's say they're a bit higher. The nose is going, let's make the nose like really close to the eyes in this one, right? So these are the things you can control. Let's just simplify it by a circle. So here's the center of the face, here's the eye line, and then you have the nose line and the mouth line. Now, roughly from the eyebrows to the nose is where the ears are going to be positioned. And then if you divide this into 3/3, you can get the hairline here. For some guys it can be lower, for some girls it can be higher, but that's just rough measurement. So these are our elements that we can play with, right? Okay, so let's get a triangular face, and let's get the ears here. Now, because there's a relationship between the eyebrows and the bottom of the nose and the ears, what you can do is find, like, well, if your nose is up here and your eyebrows are here, then you're gonna have ears that are smaller but also higher up, right? And what do we want to do with the mouth? We could bring it way up here, and let's just do that, right? So the mouth's way up here, and you can get some eyes in here. And there we go. So this guy is very triangular. Now, this is still rough, and it's kind of an idea. You don't necessarily have to go purely triangle. Like, a triangular face could just be something that sort of looks triangular, because you might have seen people and you might have thought, like, oh, this guy has a boxy face, but it doesn't mean it's perfectly a box, right? It's just got boxy characteristics. So for this one, I'm going to push the jaw really low like this, and I'm going to give this guy maybe a hairstyle that sort of feels triangular, something like this. And maybe, it's not a perfect triangle, but it's still got this feeling of a triangular face. Okay, so now that we have this guy with a triangular face like this, when you're working with shapes, it's really easy. I could create a circle shape, or a box shape, or a really long shape like this. I could have a diamond shape, and just build faces out of those shapes. Maybe for this one, I'm going to just invert it. So kind of like what we did last time. We'll just flip all of this the other way around. So okay, so instead of the eyes being high up, let's bring the eyes low. And then let's give him a longer nose, and maybe the mouth is really close to the bottom here, okay? And get some eyes in. And actually we've drawn 3 guys already, so let's draw some girls. So just gonna give a bit thicker eyelashes. Gonna raise the eyebrows a bit, and maybe this triangular girl kind of likes this guy. Okay, and let's bring the jaw down like so, and put the ears in. And now we have a tall forehead, and we can just, add in some hair. And there, see, now we have another face, and it's built off the exact opposite triangle. So you can see how effective this is to be building using shapes, because it's really hard to run out of ideas. I mean, I could have done this character the same way, like started off with this shape, but moved the eyes way up, given a long nose and a mouth here, or made the eyes in the middle, and then maybe the nose is really small and the mouth is really high, again like this, but now it's the other way around with the eyes here. I could, really lower the hairline, so we have just big hair and a small face. And again, it doesn't have to fit exactly within the shape, but I let the shape be kind of a guide to give me, well, first of all, I kind of do like when the faces do have a shape to them, but yeah, it's more of a guide as like, okay, roughly be thinking of this triangle shape. So I was just doing front views before, but this works with side views as well. So let's just create two faces, and I'm going to just use two triangular shapes again. And we'll have one with the eyes high up and the nose here and the mouth here, and one with the eyes low and the nose here and the mouth here. Okay, so again, because I have these basic shapes, and I'm just going to do a more generic skull here, more generic skull shape, and it usually fits within a box. And you'd have the ear here, and the neck coming around like this, and the eyes here, nose here. And so we still need these components, and what we can do is play around a bit more though. So one thing you can do with the side view that you can't really show in the front view, I mean you can with painting, it's a bit harder with drawing, is to play around with the jaw. Let's say this jaw comes out and it really pushes far out like that, right? So let's get a jaw like that. Let's get the ear in. Now we know where the ear is going to be, because again, it's from the eyebrow to the bottom of the nose is roughly where the ear is going to be. So we have the bottom of the nose here, we have the eyebrow thing here, so we can have a character like this. And this is where his eye goes. Let's put the nose here. And so this guy's jaw comes out. He's got a very strong underbite. And here's his ear. And maybe the rest of his face just does something like this. Okay, so that's our one person. So now we're going to do the opposite again. We're just going to take his features and flip them. So instead of a very big chin, like what features does he have? Oh, he has an underbite. We'll make this character have an overbite. And so, and also the nose. Notice how the nose is doing this type of thing. It's more like a hook nose. Well, we can give more like a pixie nose, where it's upturned, because this one's very downturned. You can have an upturned nose, or like something like this. So let's do that. Let's give it a long upturned nose with a strong overbite, and then a little chin, and a big forehead, like so, and big eyes, because this guy has pretty small eyes. He's got virtually no eyebrows to speak of, so let's give this character eyebrows, and some thick lashes, and a jaw that's very high up. Let's give some ears here. And I did play around with the proportions here, because I could give humongous ears if we just go from the bottom of the nose to the eyebrows. But you can, first of all, with girls, they tend to have smaller ears, And second of all, you still can use your artistic license and vary things a bit. So I'm going to do that and make the ears a bit smaller, and let's get the shape of the head doing something more like this, and have a hairline going back like this. And maybe she has a ponytail. And this guy's got a super thick neck. See, it doesn't even just go straight into his body. So let's give this character a super skinny neck. And there we go. So basically, you know, experimenting with these kinds of proportions and just varying them is really, in my view, it's a secret to getting a bunch of interesting characters. And it's very hard to say, oh, I don't know what to draw, because it's like, just draw anything, draw one character that has some personality to them, and then you can draw someone that's just exactly the opposite. So what does this have? This feature. Okay, so make it small like that. How's it so small? Oh, make it big. So, you know, it becomes really easy to start to see all the variations in your character, all the possibilities. Now, all the same things apply to a figure as well. So let's say we have a figure that's got a triangular head that's sort of like this. Let's just replicate that with the body. So it's just a bigger triangle. And then a couple of triangles here, and some arms. And that's it. This is a very triangle person. Now what we could do is just invert that triangle and do a bunch more triangles here. And here we have a completely different silhouette. Or we could play with a different shape. Let's play around with like an oval and make this a very ovally shape. And now we have another character here. So this probably, I don't know if this looks that impressive, or maybe it's just, I don't know. It looks, maybe it looks stupid to you. To me, I look at this and I can totally see characters. So maybe I'll just flesh them out and show you kind of what I can see in them. So the first thing I'm going to do is, I tend to get the crosshairs in to show, you know, where are the eyes, and where's the nose, where's the mouth. And so we have a shape like this. And let's see, maybe I'll give this character a bun. And maybe she wears a dress, right? And again, just because you make triangles, it doesn't mean that, you know, you have to stick exactly to them. And let's just put some flowers on this dress. And there, we have one character. All right, now for this guy, let's see, what are we gonna do? Well, I haven't actually talked about the nose too much. So what we can do is, remember from the side view, you have like, well, you have a few options. You could have it like this, you could have it like this, you could have it like this. But you could also have it very wide from the front view, or very narrow. So let's give this guy a very wide nose. And if you're thinking like, well, you know, this works for cartoons, but it doesn't really work for more realistic characters, well, actually it can. It's just more of a subtle thing. Like, maybe I'll do one more realistic character after this, but yeah, we could have a character like this. He's got a really wide nose. Triangular face. Maybe he's wearing a wife beater. And I don't know, maybe that's what this guy looks like. And then for this guy, maybe he's wearing a hat. Got this. I'm gonna make this one much more cartoony, because I don't really do cartoony stuff in my videos, but I sometimes do when I draw by myself. So I figure, yeah, maybe it's fine to do that. And he too has like this big torso shape. I don't want to give him the same clothes as the other guy though. So let's see, he's wearing a hat. Let's give him a tie. And there we go. A man with a hat and a shirt with a tie. And think about other things like, okay, so this guy has huge arms, right? And pretty small feet. Okay, so for this guy, let's just do big feet. Let's skinny legs again. But for this guy, let's raise the pants really high. And he does not have strong arms. He has very skinny arms. Maybe he has suspenders holding up his pants. Okay, so there. That's just another variation. So you can really play around with this a lot and find a bunch of different characters. And I guess now I'll show one that's a bit more realistic. So as I said, it's not that much different. What shape should we do? Maybe a diamond shape. Okay, so let's start with more of a diamond shape. Okay. Now, it's the same thing. You know, I'm going to think where are the eyes relative to the, like, are they higher up? Maybe they're a bit lower. And the nose is here and the mouth is here. So the eyes are going to be here, the ears are here. Now, this is still pretty cartoony. But I find, like, okay, just keeping it a little more subtle, being a bit more open with your shapes, it starts to look like, when you add more realistic features, it starts to look either like a caricature, or sometimes it just looks like a person you know. And it's because when we draw a lot of generic faces, sometimes they look like people we know, but our brain doesn't really think that way, or at least most people's brains think in terms of symbols. And when we look at people, we often make judgments like, oh, this person has a big nose, or they have buck teeth, or they have crossed eyes, or they have something. It's like we look at people and our brain is very good at making up stories, and it might not even be that the person has a big nose. If you took their nose, like maybe you have a character, right? And they look like this, and they're happy, and they've got a big nose. And then, or it looks like a big nose. But then you have a character like this, and this, he's got a much bigger head, and his eyes are here, and his nose is here, and then he has a big smile. And you might think, wow, this guy has a big mouth, and his nose is not, you know, too big. But if you were to take this nose and compare it to this nose, this guy's actually got a smaller nose, but it seems bigger because of, you know, how much space it's taking up in the face. But anyway, let's go back to this character. Okay, so, and this is still, as I said, it's realistic, so there's a lot of istic and less real. It's more like how I normally draw anyway. But it still should give you an idea, because it's just a matter of degree, right? Like, we could take this face and make it more and more, what's the opposite of extreme? Subtle. Make it more and more subtle until it looks like just, you know, more plausible. Because you look at this and it's like, okay, it's still a bit weird, but to me it does seem like, okay, this is the face shape, and I don't know, let's give it a flat head, but then maybe give this character a bun as well. And now it's filling that diamond shape, right? And then the more you detail this, the more shading you do, the more you describe the forms, the more this can become a realistic-ish face, but it's still got character. And like, if we think of this as, sure, it's still got a pointy chin and stuff, it's not much of a stretch to look at this and then to say, okay, well, that's a caricature. Okay, who's that a caricature of? Oh, maybe the actual person does have a bit of a forehead. They do have a bun, but maybe they don't look exactly like that. But they have cheekbones that are coming out like this, very severe cheekbones. So it's like, okay, do that, but make it a bit more subtle. A weaker jaw. And then eyes here, because she has eyes, and smaller nose, and thin upper lips, and thicker lower lips. And the more you, what are the eyebrows doing? Something like this. So the more you make it subtle, the more realistic your character looks. But this doesn't look like just anybody, right? You don't look at this person and think, oh yeah, this is just a very generic face. It still looks like this face has personality to it. And so sometimes I think people who are doing realism especially, maybe stay away from some of the cartoony stuff and ideas like, oh, I'm just going to play around with shapes. But I think that's a bit of a disservice, because you can get so much from simplifying, from doing things in a bit more exaggerated way with some style to it. So, I mean, I could work on this a lot more, but you can see how, maybe make the bridge of the nose goes a bit more in. You can see how it carries over, right? Like, the features are still there. If you look at this face, or at least when I look at this face, I still see this diamond shape. I look at this and I see this. So anyway, that's basically the point. That's all I really wanted to say in this, is how to make shapes. And I think it's really, really fun to experiment. At least it is for me, to play around with these things and to explore shapes and to look at faces and see what shapes you find. You know, is it blocky? Is it triangular? Is it round? Are the eyes close together? Is the mouth far apart, or is it really wide? Or, you know, are the eyebrows really high up? Just what are the elements that compose this face? So, hope that helped, and thanks for watching.